Hello and welcome to another jungle tutorial, and in this one we are going to be taking a look at a game style and a game plan that all junglers need to know. With a heavy buffing of experience over the course of the season, we've seen champions like Graves, Karthus, Shyvana, Evelynn now take over in terms of having late game experience leads and being able to sequence their camps so efficiently that even as an early game jungler you can struggle to maintain enough of an advantage in order to close the game early. As such, I've compiled a few game examples to show you exactly how you can do that. How can we counter this farming style and make sure we're applying the right pressure on them that our laners can be happy and we can be happy? Well, as much as possible until we get flamed anyway. Having a farming jungler against you means you need to have a very proactive game plan and a very aggressive style of jungling. It doesn't mean you need to go fight them every 2 seconds, but you need to have advanced jungle tracking, route understanding, and understanding how to control the game tempo to your advantage. So as always, if you enjoy, please consider liking and of course commenting below. Don't forget to subscribe for all the juicy jungle videos coming very soon. And without hesitation, let's begin. Now, in order to suppress and control a farming jungler, in general principle, you need to have a few things in your game that you can actually abuse. Take these custom games I've been setting up on PvE so that I can actually try at Volibear. The Kayn on the enemy team started Raptors, we saw him, I know I wanted to do a buff Grump clear, and then do a level 3 gank. The nice thing is because we knew the Kayn started on Raptors, it means he's definitely going down to red and definitely going down to Krugs. This sort of ordered pathing isn't exactly always the most fluent, but it does mean that the Kayn will look to abuse a top lane push. In this case, you wait for your top laner to trade, you're in prime position, easy counter gank, easy double kill. All just by knowing where the Kayn started. Let's go to a solo queue game. What have I always told Evelynn mains, and I see this on high elo Evelynn mains as well, Master tier even. They start on the same side as an invading jungler. You don't want to start on the same side as an Elise, as a Warwick, because guess what happens? I know you started on the blue buff. I'm Warwick, I'm Elise, what have you, I'm Rek'Sai, I start red, I go blue, I go Grump, I know I can invade your red. This is where, as an invading jungler, as an aggressive early jungler, that early vision control in terms of a scanner can actually save you from a lot of wasted time. A deep ward at the Raptors shows you that the Evelynn actually herself places a defensive ward, which means now you can move around the top, invade from a different angle, collapse, burn the flash, Q through follow. Thank you very much for the free first blood. So just from early game jungle tracking, we can collapse on a counter gank. If it's an early one, we can invade at a buff, timing it appropriately. Or in the case of our first Rengar gameplay example, going on a cheeky level 1 invade. It's actually quite common in Korea and the US to see Rengar players on the blue side of the map go with their top laner, maybe even the mid, on an over-the-top invade of the first red buff. This lets you go in unseen. If the enemy top laner is there, like you see in this case, the Rengar is able to actually pick up first blood. Now guess what? You see the Shyvana moving up to perhaps try and help out. However, once the Quinn has died, the Shyvana has no choice but to start on the blue side. So what this has done, even though the Rengar doesn't know exactly where the Shyvana is going to start, she kind of has no choice now but to start on the blue. That is if she wants the leash, and that is if she doesn't want to be collapsed upon by the Renekton and the Rengar. She has watered her red, so she has that protection. We've talked about farming junglers before in many videos this year. That's very good. I'll link those in the description as well, making sure you have an understanding of where the enemy jungler might want to collapse on you, just so you can be prepared. If you're very dedicated to the cause, don't ward and then die in battle and go to Valhalla. It's up to you. Now in this case, the Rengar does of course want to invade the red. The enemy laners do collapse. It ends up being a little bit of a 3v3 skirmish. He dies, Shyvana dies. He did get the red buff, but in the end, you have to kind of weigh the positives and negatives of these kind of plays. However, once again, pressure applied, camp stolen, and now you're forcing the Shyvana to go exactly where you want it to go. And that therein is very important. Farming junglers can be very sequential, very ordered in how they like to go about the game, and simply distorting their game plan, taking away their camps, forcing them to go the long way just to get some experience and farm is what we want to accomplish. So again, both crabs are up, Shyvana comes out of base, Rengar comes out of base. You look at the state of bottom lane, we have Varus with an attached item that kind of floats around a little bit. They're not going to have lane prior. It's against a set Kalista. They're shoving pretty hard. If you go to the bottom crab and you try and fight the Shyvana, sure, you can win as Rengar, but what happens when the set and the Kalista rotate up? Not good things, bad things in fact, sad things. So once again, what can the Rengar do to control the tempo of the game? I might as well just go for top crab and then use the lane prior on the top side to get myself fed, get my top laner fed, and take away the Krugs. He does exactly that. Another kill on the Quinn, Krugs taken, and yes, Shyvana would have been forced to take his red and his Krugs. The thing is, by doing this, you almost force the Shyvana into trying to make a mirror play. You can force farming junglers, especially in mid to low MMRs, even in that low diamond range, to feel compelled to counter your pressure. They don't have to, they just have to make sure they're playing the game properly. But there really isn't anything that feels much better than a bottom lane 4-man dive against you, and your bottom lane comes on top with 2 kills. This means you can afford to steal her Raptors, And because you did this, the Shyvana knows your top side, the Shyvana knows you probably took Krugs and Raptors. Where else is she going to go when she respawns? She will have to go down to tier 2 Grump and tier 2 Wolves. This means as Rengar, you don't want to let her start to sequence properly, you don't want to let her sneak the dragon. Yes, your blue buff might be spawning, your Grump and your Wolves yourselves might be coming up. And that's the thing, once the Shyvana does her bottom side, top side won't be up. She's gonna start to think, what do I do now? I can do the dragon, I can look to gank bottom lane, maybe I can counter jungle, but you'll be right there to meet her. Rengar understands this. He understands that his Krugs are gone, that Shyvana's gonna have no other choice but to try and force a bottom lane gank, that their bottom lane was shoving, so we'll have wards. He sets himself up perfectly with a really nice lane counter gank. A very quick decision on the low HP Kalista means that you can flash in, kill her, and the gank's pretty much over before it begins. Yes, the Shyvana gets a kill on the Varus, but look at how Rengar destroys the Shyvana and again shoves her off. Now after this, you saw that the Shyvana was level 5 when she came for the gank, Rengar was level 4, but do not forget in these cases that your camps are also important. Yeah, you're not trying to sequence them properly, you're trying to stop the Shyvana from doing so, you're trying to make your own impact, but the focus now is sequencing up and getting level 6. Krugs, Raptors, Wolves, you do so. We know after chunking the Shyvana bottom lane that the logical place for her to go was to the top side. Red, Krugs, Raptors will all be up. So yes, you can blindly start the Rift Herald and think, hey, this is a nice free objective, I don't exactly have bot prior for Dragon. However, it can be a very good idea to go into the enemy jungle to see what's what. It's okay to probe, it's okay to go and have a cheeky look to see what might be happening. If her red is up, if Krugs and Raptors are up, you don't exactly know where she is, you can set traps and counter jungle. If the camps were down as they were when he checked, that means you have a free Herald because she's sequencing on down. Knowledge checks like this when you're counter jungling and tracking is very important. Yes, you can be the best tracker in the world, but you always need some visual confirmations, whether it's a camping up or not up, to know where the enemy jungler is going to be. So we take this weird giant ladybug beetle, we go back to base. We know the Shyvana is going to be taking a dragon, a little bit of cannibalism if you ask me. You know the bottom lane is going to complain about it. But you also know that you can lane gank on the bottom side. This isn't about KDA, it's about map tempo. So don't go in and int. Oh, that's what he did. Okay, fast forward. Now you know her tracking sequence, right? You know she was top side, she went down to bottom side, she did the dragon. That means you know she's going to do the same thing again. Fast forward a minute or two, make sure you've cleared your camps during the downtime between your ultimate being up. Now we can do the same gank and the same counter gank, and actually it goes well this time, and look at the CS. Almost equal. Look at the KP. Yeah, it's pretty much the same. The Shyvana's had a decent game, but the Rengar has not let her run away with it. And that therein is the point of the game. Don't let someone run away with it and help one laner like a strong laner, Renekton, get a huge lead such that that map pressure exists for the entire time you're trying to do this. It's disruption, it's tracking. And I will look at a slightly different example but similar principles at the end of the video, but for now let's go into a different Rengar game. What happens when you have an enemy jungler that's a farming jungler, but also can duel you, invade you, and become very annoying? No, I'm not talking about Nidalee, but the one and only Graves. Thankfully, he is being nerfed next patch, but I still think he'll have a strong place. In this case, some farming junglers are a little bit brazen. They're a little bit too quick with their farming. You can't exactly walk into the jungle and take everything, so this particular strategy works well with an aggressive Rengar style. Think Rek'Sai also that can do this, but it's based upon the pretense that when an enemy jungler of this nature shows themselves in any sort of aggressive play, whether it's an invade trying to counter jungle you, where they run into you, or whether it's a top lane gank, what have you, you can now play around it and execute a very aggressive game plan. As such, this Rengar player, you will note the build. In the last example, yeah, he went warrior, but he went Tiamat first because he needed to prioritize taking this AoE camps as fast as possible. In this case, no. In this case, we're looking to fight, so we're going straight warrior with Red Smite into our Tiamat, and then he does like to go Duskblade into Sanguine Blade. I'm just highlighting it now so you can watch it as the game progresses. It's very irritating for these Graves to do these level 2 invade crusades. You know, they don't think you start on the top side, but you do just to throw them off, and then they run into you. Fortunately, laners rotate. Again, in the last example, will be lower elo than this, and I will show you that laners do sometimes have a soul. But nonetheless, if laners don't rotate, just leave. Yes, don't stick around, fight, and die, and then blame. Just leave. If your laners do arrive, capitalize, get 2 kills. Now we're talking. So what's our game plan once a farming jungler has done this and made a mistake? The goal is aggressive pressure. Stack up Bone Tooth, get as much AD and damage as possible. It doesn't matter if we down 20 to 30 CS because the game is over. How do we do this? Again, now we both have 2 crabs up. Which one do we go for? You know that the Graves is going blue side into the bottom crab. Your red side is up, his top side is down, and your top side is down. There's nothing else top lane but 1 crab. No point in going there. No, instead we go down, we pre-stack our ferocity on the raptor camp, we see if the crab is down. It is, but our top lane is the hero we all need in our games. Top laners, please play like this. You play off of it, you get yourself a kill, and yes, I will be the first to admit this isn't realistic. Top laners are not always going to TP into a lane and make this kind of play for you early. But the point is you have to be ready, and even if the top laner doesn't make this TP, the lane is pushing, you can still go and try and make a play. You can still go for that gank. The trick here is once you do, you know that the Graves took their bottom side crab, you know he took his blue side. That means he's going to be sequencing up. So what you do is you fall back, you take your Krugs, you take your red, you take your raptors. We abuse the fact that the bottom lane has no sums and that they're under extreme pressure. Lane gank, get even more from it. During this time, you would assume Graves did top crab and maybe counter jungled your blue side. That's why you stuck around so long, to make sure you got something out of the situation. Farming junglers are gonna do it. However, the Graves shows he's fighting the Wukong, he's chasing him down into your blue jungle. You see that he's actually going to end up taking your camps. Now he can take the dragon. Good experience, you can solo it even at this early stage. You know where he is. And by this stage, the bottom lane has once again returned. The fact that the wave isn't exactly in your optimal ganking state shouldn't deter you from alpha dominance and making the Graves feel like the tempo of the game is getting away from him, which is quite difficult to do, you know, against the Graves, but Rengar's one of those champions that allows you to tower dive and grab even more kills. So this very extended sequence, all because of a bad invade from the Graves, you could track where he was going to go, you took an opportunistic gank with your top laner, you stayed bottom side, you got a dragon, all because you knew the Graves was bottom crab and it would be sequencing up. And because you knew he was sequencing up and would counter jungle as soon as you showed, it allowed you to stick around, camp a lane, and get an objective. And yes, you would have noted, I'll play it again in case you missed it, the Syndra rotated up and actually cleaned up a kill on the Graves. He overstayed trying to counter jungle after chasing down the top laner and using his sums, and you know, any self-aware mid laner, any self-respecting mid laner is going to say, hey, nice. You say, thank you very much mid laner, I'll take my Grump, I'll take my blue, I'll take the crab, let me counter gank for you in the mid lane just to help you out because you helped me. This pressure that the Syndra exerted, this pressure you exerted as Rengar, is forcing the Graves to farm in a certain way that always puts them on the opposite side to where the objective is. So even though you took the Herald and now he thinks, okay, I'll take your red side jungle, you have Warrior, you go back, you buy another longsword, and now you immediately can go down to the bottom lane. You know by the extension of your gank, by the extension of you taking Herald, he's going to be down there. You're not exactly sure where, but as soon as he shows bot, you're there for your ultimate, you're down a level, you're down 20 CS, but you have so much more gold, and you can watch the glory of Warrior Rengar. Look at this triple kill bottom lane, huge amounts of gold lead, total objective control. The fact that he's down 25 odd CS doesn't even matter. All because of two things, being invaded so he could track his next moves, and then going down to those next moves and saying, okay, well if you did blue, you're going up, so now I'm just gonna camp bottom lane, take dragon, and because my lane actually collapsed on you and you were forced to do your red buff, I'll take a free Herald also. And then because I knew you were going to be bottom side, I just lane gank, counter ganked you. 3 simple phases, ladies and gentlemen, and now all you have to do is make sure you control your camps, keep up this pressure, ensure you're getting those dragons, and the game is free. However, just to highlight a final scenario very quickly, if you are not a jungler like Rengar, if you're not a jungler like Rek'Sai, anything that can sort of run into the enemy jungle and just take them head on. Maybe you're playing something a little bit off meta, maybe like a Zyra jungle because you're crazy. Your ability to suppress the enemy farming jungler from taking off isn't going to be done by simply having that kind of lane impact that Rengar had in the previous example. It's going to be by counter jungling and denying their camp sequencing through Odin's eye level tracking. So in this case, you know the Karthus is going to go blue all the way up to Krugs. This is pre-nerf Karthus, so he's a bit faster in this game than he is on live, just a little bit. So you know he's going to be finishing those Krugs at around 3 minutes, which means you have to time your 3 buff invade clear to match that cadence. Of course, pay attention to lane prior, make sure you can have assistance if necessary, go and invade, kill him. If everyone rotates and your team actually wins the fight because it ends up being a 3v2, use your flash, use your mechanics, get as much from the situation as you can. Now, because he didn't actually end up getting the Krugs, 2 things can happen. He can either go top side, finish those Krugs and get to top crab, or he can go back down to his Grump, into the Wolves, Raptors, into Krugs. However, the timing for that isn't quite perfect. He also doesn't have lane power on the bottom side, so like the Rengar from the first example, is sort of forced to go top side. Even as a Zyra jungle, you know how to control this. Take the crab, walk into his jungle, you know that Grump is spawning just under 4 minutes, take that, take the second tier Wolves, the Karthus ganks on the top lane, you see this, fall back, take your Raptors and Krugs just to fill the time. The Karthus now will definitely move to the bottom side of the map and not realize that all his camps are gone. As such, like the first Rengar example, set up your counter gank on the bottom side, get there before he does. Just don't overgreed and end up falling. That's not what you want. Kill the ADC, back on out, and go back to base. Either, through the mortuary or just by walking. Now, once you respawn, once you've come back to base, once you've come back to life, you know his Grump, Wolves, and Blue will all be spawning around the same time. Because of your proactivity and tracking, everyone knows where the Karthus is, the crab is up, you take your red, you collapse on him, your whole team is there to win the fight, and now you get a dragon. The most important point here is that you see the difference between, say, there's Grandmaster Challenger junglers and someone a little bit lower down on the ladder. After all of that, you take the wolf camp, you can simply gank mid lane, hopefully the Yasuo doesn't commit Pepe hands, you can take your blue, and once the Karthus goes on down to take his grump again, and he thinks the wolves are up, huzzah, they are not. His camp sequencing is ruined. He's gonna have a bit of a feeling of, oh, what other camps are taken out? What do I do next? And now you can go ahead and take the Rift Herald. A more advanced jungler would have gone to counter jungle the Raptors and Krugs and look to do something on the bottom side. As such, he's feeling quite afraid because of the invades and level of counter jungling and will want to stay in his jungle and simply camp sequence up. You as a 200 IQ Zyra jungle enthusiast know he's going to do this, which means as he takes his wolves, as he takes his Raptors and Krugs, which you can time by the way, because you took the wolves, you know they'll spawn 2 minutes later, you can see when the grump was spawning, you can time in your mind how and when he will reach the Krugs. So because you're there before him, if you waited for the wolves, that means he's disjointed his camp sequencing, it's not perfect, and you get to take the Krugs yourself. Before you go back to base, fall down and finally take your grump and wolves just to deny any counter jungling, and all of a sudden you're 2 levels up on Karthus as Zyra, with more CS, with 2 objectives, with more itemization, just because you tracked him to perfection and disjointed his camp sequencing through pinpoint counter jungling. Of course, later in the game when he pisses you off because he presses R, make sure you annihilate him, give him the one shot, show him who the boss of this game is, and you should have no issue closing out through total objective control, winning lanes, and making sure the enemy jungler never plays Karthus again, you degenerate scum. And there you have it. Yes, I know this was very dense. Yes, I know it was long and intense and we had different scenarios that we had to rinse through very quickly, but hopefully you can understand the principles behind these strategies that you can use to suppress and make sure you come out on top, control the game tempo, and win against hard farming junglers. And as you can see, it doesn't really matter what jungler you're actually playing, just that you execute it well and understand what they want to accomplish in the game and make sure that they don't get to do it. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you were able to enjoy and learn something. Please don't forget to like, share, and comment if you did. We always like to get around 1500 likes for the dopamine hit. I hope you get one too. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel as well as the Virkayu gameplay channel. We're almost on 10k on that one. And as always, thank you for watching, and I will see you all in the next tutorial.